Hi, my name is Saleemul Huq. I'm the director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development at the Independent University Bangladesh in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today. My apologies for not being able to join you live, but thank you for inviting me to give you a video statement. So my area of work is climate change. I work on the impacts of climate change in developing countries, particularly on the most vulnerable communities in the most vulnerable countries around the world, but in particular in Asia and in South Asia, obviously in my country, Bangladesh, which is one of the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, with 170 million people living in less than 150,000 square kilometers, one of the highest density populations in the world. At the same time, sitting on a delta of two of the world's biggest rivers, the Ganges and the Brahmaputra, which makes it very susceptible to periodic flooding, which is going to get worse and has indeed already got worse, and also from cyclonic storms that come from the Bay of Bengal and hit Bangladesh as well as India and Myanmar every now and then as well. So this region of the world, South Asia, has already been identified at the global level as one of the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. All the countries in the region, Bangladesh, India, and the other countries in South Asia, all of them are quite vulnerable to different aspects of climate change, ranging from cyclonic storms, as I said, from the seas, both the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal side, as well as from glacier ice melt in the high Himalayas in countries like Bhutan and Nepal, and also flooding in the major rivers, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra in our part of the world, and also the Indus and the other rivers in the South Asia region, and also droughts and heat waves. These are an increasing phenomena that we are now seeing in many parts of the subcontinent as well. So the subcontinent of South Asia is amongst the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. However, that's not the whole story. It's not just a question of vulnerability. We have known about this for some time now, well over 10 years, and we have been acting. We have been preparing ourselves to deal with that impact of climate change. We have worked out which are the most vulnerable places, which are the most vulnerable communities, and we are working collectively, both the governments and civil society and other stakeholders, including academia that I represent, the research establishments. We have all been looking at what are the most vulnerable places and people, and how can we help those most vulnerable to prepare themselves and adapt for the impacts of climate change that are going to come, and indeed are actually now coming. So this year, 2021, has seen a crossover from climate change being a problem of the future to climate change being a problem of the present. The sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change scientists, working group 1 in the scientific working group, have very unequivocally said in their latest report that came out in August of this year that we can now see the evidence of human-induced climate change due to 1 degree or more increase since the Industrial Revolution. And therefore, we now have to be prepared. We have entered what I call the era of loss and damage from climate change, no longer just reducing emissions, which we call mitigation, or adapting to climate change, but also now having to do loss and damage, deal with loss and damage, minimize it, avert it, and unfortunately also address it after it has happened. And in this part of the world, it's an issue that we need to be taking seriously. And I hope that everybody in South Asia will be made aware of this problem. I think the level of awareness is already quite high. It needs to be even higher. And we need to move from awareness to actions as quickly as possible. And that's where I think we can all collaborate together. Thank you.